Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing today?
What do you say? All good, all good.
We have our
I'm
first
good.
guest today. This is my husband. This is Wayne Nordeen. Say hi, Wayne.
Hello, everybody.
You look like me today, though. It says you're Deb Monroe. You must be on my Zoom.
Right.
Geez, I wonder
Well,
why.
well, I am connected.
In fact, we're even in the same house. We thought it might look better if we were each on a separate camera, at least.
Oh, I was supposed to be there too, but
I know we were going to be all together this weekend, but that
I-
you had a big job that took you away, right?
yeah, and it just keeps the insanity just keeps going, and I kind of like it. But then you go, wait a minute, you're interrupting my flow.
Right. And what did you do? A cartoon? What did you end up booking on Friday?
Yeah, and today I had to do some auditions for TV, which required me to get, because I wanted to meet up earlier. And yeah, I have a big NDA gig, which is very exciting. And I've got some producers from LA and from England. So there's a lot going on in the realm of
I
what they need,
know.
what
Trying to
they
fit
want.
everything all in.
How many hoops can you jump through all at once? So it's kind of perfect. I mean, I don't question it, but it always happens. I just got offered two big gigs, but there are 2 weeks in between in China, two conventions, and it conflicts with another convention that I've been doing for 5 years, and I do it every year in Ohio, and a show that I'm doing for the Fringe. So it's all while all of that is going on, it's like my assistant is going, I can't sleep at night because I'm worried. Like we have to deal with this.
Schedule, yeah. Yeah.
How are we going to deal with it? And I go, we'll deal with it. I've got somebody standing by. Should we? I need an understudy for the show, the play that I'm doing. And depending on what I hear back from China, because I've got my agent working on it, um, I may fly in and just miss the first day so that I'm like, it's
Look at
all,
both.
it's
Uh,
all a nightmare. And all I can say is thank God we have the retreat when we have it, because I was like, oh
skirted
my,
everything.
yeah, because it's in 13th of July, which is when
Great.
everything is crazy, as we know
So
anyways.
that goes back to what my husband was saying before we got live on the air, where he was calling us both. I have no idea why, but he was calling us both workaholics. And you
That
immediately
was the
defended.
same way.
Yeah, you immediately said, no, I've taken time off. I'm taking time off. And yet here, there's time off for you.
Well, and that's the whole thing. All the best laid plans, all the best laid plans when they call, and it involves, you go, being what an actor amongst other things, but it's sort of like you got to jump when they say, here it is,
Yeah.
here's the job, and you're like, oh man,
You're always
man,
on call, right?
you're
Actors
always on
always
call.
on
You
call.
never know when it's going to happen, and it's
Yeah.
always like, okay, great, that's great.
And they don't necessarily wait around for you. You have to be available to them. Now, Wayne, you didn't know you were getting in for a workaholic, did you, when you met me?
Not really, but you learn as you go.
Well, I
I
thought we
could,
talked today about just so I can get some conversation going with Wayne here. I thought maybe we'd talk today a little further. We talked about relationships before, but I thought we would talk now more about just for Ellie and I, our history and how we met our now husbands, because we both had our own journeys to get to where we are at this point. And I'll just kind of start with mine because he's here today. We met actually on Plenty of Fish, which was great for me because as a talker, I was able to write my own little essay, as Wayne called it, to grab who I wanted. And at first, it really wasn't working. They were all very much one night stands, and I was calling it very nasty names. I wasn't happy. It was too many. Then I rewrote my profile to be, I'm very honest. So I was very forward about what I wanted. And then I wrote it again. And then it was all like people that I just wouldn't date whatsoever. So I don't know what I did there. So I wrote it one more time and I was so blatantly honest about everything. And my husband answered my essay. And what was great about that is I proved that instead of going from like 500 people, I went to like maybe three. You can really find what you're looking for if you know what it is. So that goes back to communication. I think I was able to really communicate what I wanted when I wrote my essay because it was long. But you kind of knew, Wayne, would you say that I was a talker maybe by how much I said in my essay?
Well, what can I say? Every now and then I like a good book. And I guess with you, I learned very quickly well, the book is wide open and it starts at chapter one and it just carries on and it's always a good read. So
And
it's
you know,
always
it's
a good
kind of
time.
fascinating. I just hear you guys talking, you know, that usually, I mean, I've never been on a dating site. All my friends have been on dating sites. I sort of missed that whole
Mhm.
thing. And you know, it scares me because I've heard horror stories about it, but I love that yours is a success story because, you know, I feel just from what I'm getting from those that do use dating sites, um, it was a while ago with you guys now because you've been
Well,
married for quite a while and been together for quite a while.
yeah.
So success is great, but what I generally am hearing is that it's
Not
there's
so
a bit of
good.
a false front and it's not very good. So the stories people are telling are not honest. So I think Deb, it goes back
Yeah.
to, and Wayne, like you said, being able to read a good book and
Yeah.
enjoy the book and know that
Yeah.
that it's not
Well,
a fiction.
It has
I
to
think
be
you take the
truthful.
fear out of the dating sites if you go in without any real expectations.
Like,
If you set yourself up for expectations, you tend to set yourself up for failure, really, because we have generally pretty high expectations when we're on a live web of how do you say options in the dating world. It's no different than searching on
catalog,
Google.
right? It's sort of like, you know, when you
It's
look at
like
all the
going on Google
beautiful
and having a bunch of
bodies
different
in the
options,
catalog, right? It's
right?
the same thing, right?
Yeah. So yeah, you gotta, fortunately it was a long read to meet Deb, but she narrowed it down to cut the BS out of it kind of thing. And the timing was perfect because this time around on the dating site, I was in a place in my life where I was ready to commit to a good relationship. So it worked out.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I guess I probably made it pretty obvious. I know I made it very obvious in mine that I was looking for a relationship. I wasn't making it hogwash or iffy or anything. I made it very, very clear who I was, what I wanted, how I wanted it, in which way I think it should happen. And so I felt like the dating site gave me control. I didn't learn that until my third essay, but
And
it gave
yet you
me
got stuck with
control to what's that way?
and yet you got stuck with this, huh?
Oh, there's no stuck in that one. And that's the whole point. Like if you look at the site being called Plenty of Fish for us at the time, I was able to put my lure in, my bait, which I feel is honesty, and that's what I think is successful in the world. And I was able to lure someone who matched me. It's not like we're the exact same person, but I don't have to pretend to be me. I don't have to pretend about anything about me. He never pretends about who he is. And so I think because I was so strict about that blatant honesty from my essay on, I made sure that everything was like be exactly who you are. If you're going to be an alcoholic, that's who I want to meet. I don't want you to pretend you're not an alcoholic. I don't want you to pretend that you are rich if you're not. And I don't care about your money. I wrote that too. I wrote all sorts of stuff. Now, what did you? And we're going to ask Ellie about how she met Pete, but for Wayne, what was that normal to see that kind of an honest feeling, or do you think it was because you were dating for a little while on the dating sites, right?
Not normal in per se. I mean, most people would leave a highlight of their best attributes, so to speak, right? And you know, picture taken 5 or 8 years ago, kind of thing, right? And then you show up and you sort of get the other side of the dollar bill, so to speak.
They don't
But
look like what, so that's a falsehood right from the start, right?
Everybody
well,
says,
I mean, often, right? I mean, it's a different version of the true reality, right? But I don't know. First time I met you, it was a very pleasant reality, so pretty good.
Now,
Yeah, you gotta
Oh,
say
she's
that.
nuts.
But this is live, man. You're gonna be getting it later if you.
now, Ellie, we'll go back to a little bit of that. Now, how did you meet Pete? It's quite a fascinating story, really is.
Uh, I, I would, relationships. I'm one of these people that really kind of miss the relationship thing. I kind of feel like I have a relationship with everybody, and it's the exact same kind of relationship. I kind of love, and I'm open in the same way. And I don't know, I'm my husband number three, and been engaged two other times besides that, and had all kinds of people in my life so many times. Irresponsible to sort of that thing. When I met Pete, and he was Frankie at that time, that was his name.
Oh,
It was a playful, joking nickname, right? Because I didn't take it seriously. I was in Greece. I went with my mom, who's now passed. She passed in 2010, but that was in 2001. Geez, 2001 or two. And when we went to Greece, and I wasn't looking for a relationship. I had just gotten out of a horrifically bad relationship, with an alcoholic and an abusive alcoholic to boot. And so, I was free, and I was just free and on vacation. And this guy was like pulling all this spiritual, I've known you for 2,600 years, and the lines on our hand are the same. And you walked onto the bar patio, the rooftop patio, and his heart skipped because he knew me, and I would recognize him and remember him in 2 days. And I'm like, what the? Shut up. What are you, 12? Like, I'm like, get lost. Like, don't bug me with his little burgundy vest and tie on, like work in the hotel bar. Like, I was like, get lost. But and I said, I'm leaving to go to Mykonos Island for a week tomorrow. So good luck with that 2-day thing. Anyway, he followed me on a boat to Mykonos Island, got another hotel different from mine, wanted to take my mom and I out for dinner. And I'm like, he's a stalker. Oh my God, he's a crazy person. And we ended up in a little church, on the second night that he was there. And I had a moment, where I saw something very strange sitting on the floor with just the candles for travelers that wanted to light a little candle in this tiny, tiny 6 foot by 6 foot church. There's not even no pews, nowhere to sit. We sat on the floor and just got chatting. And then somewhere in the midst of everything, I saw this weird thing floating in the air, and it's like, what the hell is that? Right? It's kind of like this bluey, purpley, white, shadowy thing, like just kind of like, and I'm looking at the candles going, where's that? What is that? And he goes, can you see it? And I said, yeah, I can see it. What is it? And he goes, it's spirit. You remember me? And I went, like, I screamed at the top of my and burst into tears. And we've been together ever since. He left the next morning on a ship to go back home. And it was like one of those weird, you want to talk about a story, like that story is one I lived through. And if you had have asked me, if that was a person that I would ever see myself with, I would have gone, hell no, right? And it's like we've
there
been
he
married
is.
20 years, right?
And he's so, what's really interesting, what I find so fascinating about the story is he seems so introverted. So for
He
him to
is.
have chased you down and done all the things he did when he's got this introverted personality, it's just like that's so magnificent. Like, he was so drawn.
But I mean, it's like all of us, we were talking about relationships, and the basis of relationship is honesty and truth, Deb, and what you wrote. And Wayne said, he went, yeah, I like to read a good book. And what I've just spent, on the last week going through is a mountain, because Pete is a writer, and he writes beautiful cards and poetry and love stuff. And it's really shocking. And he does it for everybody, like my neighbors, my family, and they're like, my God, Pete's card made me cry. Like, and I went through this mountain from 22 years of love letters from him.
Aw.
And because I want to write a book about, because we write cards to one another, because he's very shy, but he's not really shy with me, but you know, with everybody else, and I mean, really, like this is
I
it.
know
Like,
if you could, if you knew Ellie, for those
person,
that
like,
don't
think
know,
about it, right?
that's
But
a
I'm
odd
reading
couple.
these letters, and you're talking about you writing your and you know, I've forgotten about letters written in 2002, and you know, I mean, they're unbelievable. And he would send me like 3 a day from Greece because he didn't come here until, I went to visit him. He'd come to visit me. I'd go to visit him. He'd come to visit me. Then he asked me to stay in Greece, and I went, no, I can't do that. Like, I can't speak the language. Culturally, I'm screwed. Like, no. And so I said, you can come here. And he did. He left everything. He left everything and came here. But what I find fascinating now, it's funny that we're having this chat now, is we don't write to each other cards, or we email and stuff, or text, or
Yeah, we've gone
but
away from that.
I honestly, and amidst this mountain of shit, I found birthday cards from my mother, and little notes and little things, and from other people, that just made me go, because I guess I'd stick them all in, like I had a special place for his love letters, but I guess at Christmas and Easter, other cards would get thrown in there too. And what I realized was, I took pictures and I sent it to my friends. I said, look what I came across. Um, and people that I don't talk to anymore, and that have wrote beautiful, loving things. And I think, relationships are a responsibility to one another. You have to, I mean, you guys know that. You're both, yeah, we're workaholics, but we've got to be sort of responsible, because you can forget and
Mhm.
get busy and drop the ball on a really key part of your life.
I think that happens for a lot of marriages. They start off, or relationships, whether it's marriage or not. You start off very engaged, and and actually, funny enough, when I did write my essay, I wrote down about the dating cycle, because I think there's a dating cycle for a lot of couples, and then there's another cycle after that, and it's hard to maintain that beginning excitement, because there's an adrenaline, there's an excitement that happens. And I tried to state, be exactly who you are on day one. Don't pretend you are clean if you're not clean. Don't pretend that you're frivolous, or that you like gifts, or whatever it is, if you don't like those things, because later on that's going to creep out. And I think people really miss that, is they try so hard to be who they think they're supposed to be, so that they can get the right person. Because they're, again, as we've talked about so much when it talks about communication, is they're trying to be someone they're really not, to please everybody else, instead of being the genuine them. And I think, as we've talked about before, Ellie, being ourselves, we're okay with. We're okay to be ourselves. So it was easy
I
for me
think Wayne is
like that.
too. And I mean, like, getting back to the honesty, I mean, there's a reason you guys have so much in common. Like, you're both Virgos, and you're in a band. Like, I mean, you love
Is
rock
there.
and roll, and let's get real. Like, it's not like, I don't know. I just feel that there's an alignment that happens when you like the same thing. I mean, it's not that you need to like the same foods, or you need to like any of that stuff, but you've got enough of the other things that love your glorious
Mhm.
home, and you've put an immense amount of work into making it a cohabitation that actually, yeah, Deb's got her purple and black Christmas tree. And you know what I mean? Because she loves those colors. But it's like, I feel like, Wayne, you've got your own things, your RVing things, and Deb loves to go RVing with you. And it's like, you've got to have a
Commonality.
commonality. If you're
Yeah.
just going for a flash in the pan kind of, if a sexual relationship, or an intellectual relationship, or an emotional relationship, it's not going to work. I don't believe it can work.
Now, Wayne, you obviously have had relationships in the past. You were married before. You had a long committed. You have two daughters from previous marriages. For me, and I'm not just saying this because we're on the air and I'm trying to make you look good at all. I just find you, for me, one of the best human beings on the planet. I just think you're wonderful. I think you treat me amazing. You've always been exactly who you are. We've never changed that. Exactly what I was talking about. So we've been able to find that. Why do you think you didn't have that before? If I see you that way, if I see you as this perfect human being for me, why do you think that others, because I've talked to your exes and they didn't see you the same way. What do you think that is? What's the difference, do you think?
Well, I think, I mean, obviously, this time around, I was definitely pretty specific and looking for certain compatibility, and based on my life lessons learned through previous relationships, right? And you know, through self awareness, because I learned really, a good relationship starts within myself first. And when I met you, I was in a good place within myself where I had done some soul searching and learning from the past, and I learned that when it comes to a good healthy relationship, whether it be with you or with Ellie or my kids, my friends, my work, my dog, I'm responsible 100% for my part of that relationship, right? And I've also learned that I'm not responsible for others' actions, and it's okay for them to be who they are, but I have to recognize whether they're going to be healthy for me or not. So now I surround myself around people that I recognize are healthy for me, and I don't have a bad apple in my entire circle,
Hmm.
whether friends or family or colleagues or whatnot. And I'm just able to recognize if there's something negative or um, a negative spirit happening. I just walk away, and I'm okay to do that because I'm good to agree to disagree, because everybody's entitled to their opinion, their views, their ways, their life, right? But sometimes, we either travel down the road together, and we hit the fork in the road and we make a decision to go left together or right together, or some people, they split at the curve, right? And they have they're seeing what's ahead of them, and that's what works for them, and I'm okay with that, you know. And you and I, we're on the same road, and our path is very united, so it just works really well.
And I love what Wayne just said. Like I really, really love what you just said, Wayne. And I mean, I think some relationships, it's not even that they decide to go left or right together. I think they just stop at the fork and they stop going. They stop moving together, and it just becomes a cohabitation that is empty because they're not going anywhere. They're
Mhm.
not moving. You've got to keep the,
Feeding relationship.
yeah, you've got to keep that fire burning, man. And if it goes out, you're going to be feel just kind of cold and empty. And, I've got a bunch of friends that, everybody's, I'm sure you guys get it too. It's like, I don't know, you seem so happy and you seem so well adjusted. And I just want to have a partner. And how does, Pete have a brother? And I'm like, yeah, he does, but he's not like him. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, and it wouldn't matter anyway, because it's like the adjustments that you make, Wayne. I love when you said you have to have a relationship with yourself
Mhm.
first.
Mhm.
Deb and I, we've been through a life of challenges. I think we all have, and we learn from our challenges or we don't, and we adjust accordingly if we choose to be in a relationship. You have adjusted, or at least, I don't know, karmically sort of looked at lessons in your life and said, well, that thank you for assuaging my karma there. That was a really bad relationship. And I'm not going to choose, for myself. I have a little bit of a Jesus complex, and I want to think I can save everybody. And it's like, save yourself, girl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
Well,
problem.
we have to learn from our past, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes what we think is a mistake is actually a very valuable lesson, right?
No.
And you can either leave that mistake behind you, saying, I'll never do that again, or you can say, okay, I experienced that. I lived through that. I'm going to learn from that. And I'm going to choose to take that or not with me when I go forward, right?
I wonder if you can talk about, Wayne. I know you had said that your friends were telling you, you've got to be more of a jerk. You've got to not be so nice. You got to not be such a pushover. These women are just gonna abuse you, walk all over you, correct?
Yeah, I mean, my closest friends would probably tell you that, I have a very easygoing demeanor and, anybody can easily, how do you say, walk all over me, right?
I don't.
What's that?
But I don't.
No, but I mean, when I was on the dating site early on or whatever, and my buddy saying, you got to be a little more aggressive or whatever, and I'm like, no, I don't. I just got to be me, and I'll meet somebody who likes me for who I am, and then yeah, like I don't know, probably 3 4 days later, all of a sudden, Deb's essay shows up, and the script is written, right?
And before, I know you also had a relationship before where you felt more control because you are like, to my benefit, you're easygoing. And that's good because I'm a more aggressive personality. I'm more uptight. I can be more, I'm definitely more high energy. I'm bigger in that. And so you become my calm. And so because I feel for you and happy to admit, you don't feed my asshole. So if my asshole comes out, you don't really feed it a lot. You're able to just somehow, not initiate in whatever way that is, which allows me to not keep going. Yeah, and do you want to talk about that for a second?
Well,
Because
I've recognized through through how do I say, through my history of my 20 years of sobriety here, I've been through some good uh, learning experiences, but I've learned, to find a balance within myself, psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. I got those four things within a good balance, and you know, I'm able to step back and take a deep breath if I need to. I've learned it's not easy. Whereas before I would just react and my mouth would lead. But now I take a deep breath, I think it through before I spit it out, because once you say it, it's too late. You've already said it. It's already done. You've already hurt somebody else's feelings or yourself or engaged in a battle that I generally don't choose to do. So, if I see you or somebody else getting excited or emotions heightened, then I recognize that. And then I think, okay, well, I have a part in this. I could either engage in a negative manner and make it worse, or I could step up and be a positive outlet for this person and help them get through this without them blowing up. Because blowing up, I mean, it's real easy to have the negative energy, but the negative energy takes 10 times as much out of you than the positive energy, believe it or not. So I find staying on an even keel is sort of staying within that balance. And if you can find that within yourself, your whole world stays balanced. And it doesn't matter what people do around you at the end of the day. I mean, it matters because you're engaged with them. But I always like to use the example, I'm driving down the road, right? And minding my business. Some guy comes by screaming past me with his finger going out the window. Now I have a choice. I could either speed up and trace after him and race between cars, get ahead of him, finger him back, or I could smile and wave. So I guess he's having a pretty rough day and not let it get to me, right? So that's what I do with the best I can with others. So I don't find confrontation, and I know when to sort of make light of it. And I
and you
know when
had
to walk away. If I need to disengage, if somebody is really being out of there, I'll just say, I'm disengaging from this conversation, and we'll talk later.
Yeah, that's what Pete does too. You're very similar in that way. He does not engage in any form of conflict, and not even opinion. Like he's quiet, but like if he'll watch chaos going all around him, with other people, family members, all kinds of stuff. And he just doesn't, he chooses not to engage in it. He
And I think it's
could.
very typical. We see, like I say, more masculine people tend to be what I call the asshole syndrome. They hold it in, they hold it in, they hold it in, and then they blow up. And then that's not healthy because then they're letting it out in a different way. And I think from a stereotype point of view, typically more feminine people are more emotional, more touch with the emotions, so they will let it out all the time. So women tend to be, or feminines tend to be more let it out, bitchy, bitchy, bitchy. So they're the bitches. So masculines are the assholes, women, feminine the bitches. And there's exceptions to every rule, obviously, in this, but we tend to let it out too much and need to learn how to suck some stuff in and recognize, okay, maybe that's not worth it, which is what you've taught me by your demeanor, Wayne. Just who you are to me helps me become less confrontational, less, all those things. I'm still who I am inside, obviously, but if there's nothing feeding it, it's like that bully syndrome. If no one feeds it, it doesn't grow as big because no one's getting a reaction off of something. And
And
so,
it's like I've always said, and you just said it as well. What other people say and do is none of your business, really. What you say and do is your business.
Right.
So if you get caught up, if your ego goes, why the fuck you gave me the finger? Fuck you, because our ego goes, oh, they think they're better than me, when it's really they're who knows what they're going through. They could have just gotten some really horrible news. They're not doing well. They're dealing with their own crap, and it's like you blow kisses to those people. That's what I do too. It's
mhm,
like, and then they get mad and think you're being sarcastic. And it's like, no, I really, I want you to be okay because you're really angry right now. And I've learned well, through much therapy to not engage the crazy.
right.
State your truth. And if things get out of control, walk away.
And I didn't learn it through therapy. I learned it through road rage. Because I've just been in some insane road rage situations where I just let it get the better of me. I literally had a very old woman on the hood of my car driving around in the biggest mall in Canada, the West Edmonton Mall parking lot at Christmas time with her on the hood of my car. She wouldn't get off. So I guess I better tell the story because it just is too wrong to just leave it hanging. So I'm waiting for a parking spot. It's like Christmas at the biggest mall ever. There's no parking. I'm waiting forever. Finally, this person reverses out, but as they do, this other car just kind of races me for it and cuts me off and is willing to hit me for it. And they get the spot. And so I'm really mad. I'm with my daughter. She's like 12, maybe. And I park the car behind the car and I knock on the window and the lady had locked herself in the car with
Yeah,
her
because
older
you're scared.
friend because she's kind of scared because I'm mad. And then they looked at each other and ignored me and I said, "Merry Christmas." And she ignored me again. And I said, "Merry fucking Christmas." And she ignored me again. And I said, "You're rude." And then she still ignored me. And then she looked at me. Oh, no, I didn't say effing yet. I said, Mary, whatever. I said something else.
You're rude after Merry
And I said,
Christmas.
yeah. So I said, "You're rude." And then she looks at her friend and she goes, laughs, and she looks at me and she goes, "Oops, didn't see you." And I went, "You're a rude fucking bitch." And I got in my car and I'm raging. I'm mad. I'm adrenaline. I'm hot. I'm what the kids call anxiety now. I'm just pissed off. And I'm driving. And as I go back down the other aisle, as I'm about to, now remember, they fought me for this parking spot. They're going to go shopping, Christmas shopping. And it's a big deal when you go Christmas shopping for us women. Anyway, so we drive back down the aisle, and there she is with her friend walking to the store. And I'm thinking, oops, didn't see you, huh? So I floored it a little bit and then right in front of her and went, "Oops, didn't see you." And she jumped on the hood of my car. And she started trying to dent my car with her elbow. She's trying to dent the front hood. Then she tried to grab my hood ornament and she bent it right off. And I'm like, "You know what, bitch? I'm going to drive with you on this car if you don't get off. So get off my freaking car." She wouldn't get off. I
Well, she broke your thing. That's where
He's
it's like
breaking my car. And so
breaking my
I
property,
start
breaking my
driving
property.
around. I start driving around. She's on the hood of my car. And now I'm like, okay, what do I do? She's like 70. I'm like 30. I should not be doing this. So I finally stopped and I said, look, bitch, you and I are going to go right here, right now, if you don't get off my car. And she goes to grab my windshield and she goes to break it off. And she says, good, then I can call the cops. And I said, call the cops.
You
Okay,
wrecked my
and I
property.
can charge you for what you did to my car. And I don't even know how it dissipated. My poor daughter's watching this. We dissipate the fight. It's done. But now I'm looking at my broken car and she's off at Zeller shopping. So I'm mad. I parked the car. I'm like, Melissa, you're going to stay
I
right.
would have gone and gotten her license
I
plate.
did. So hang on. So I parked the car and I'm like, okay, you're staying right here, honey. And then I walk over to her car and wouldn't you know, instead of shopping, she got back in her car and now she's so frazzled like I am. She's leaving the parking lot. And so in mid stride, I'm willing to kill myself over this stupid incident. And I reach out and I grab her windshield while she's driving on her new Taurus
Your
wagon.
wiper.
And I reaped it back, and that was the end of my incident. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this is not worth life. This is
How'd
not.
that,
Way
how'd that
worse.
relationship work out for you?
Well, I did see her again at Tim Hortons one day, and we were in between a window and a car, so I couldn't do anything about it. But I remembered her well. It didn't quite
Still
work out,
remember. Yeah.
and I learned how to stop. I mean, I
How,
still have
how long
to.
ago was this, Deb?
Oh gosh, 20 or 24 years, 23 or 4 years ago. And then I had another road age incident where a guy followed me all the way to my mom's house because of I cut him off. And so I learned that I was initiating those situations. Like as much as it might have been wrong for all the situation that I was in, and I know their part in it, I stopped initiating those situations. So now when I drive, instead of swearing at all the drivers, because I am so overly empathetic that I drive for everybody. So it makes me mad when nobody drives for everybody. Like, move over, get out of the left. People, please get out of the left lane. Please just get out of the like what? I don't understand why you can't listen to this rule. Just get out of the left lane. Some of us like to go faster. It's okay. Anyway, so I've learned to not let it get to me because I'm saving 1 minute or I've had to teach myself though. I've really had to teach myself because otherwise I'm going to lose it. So how do we teach people that? How do we teach them?
That's like an incident that happens in relationships, not just road rage.
Yeah.
Ridiculous things that our ego gets pissed off about because we don't like the way you make a grilled cheese sandwich or the way you leave the dishes out on the thing or your socks are just thrown on the thing or whatever we get pissy about. And it's just so ridiculous. Like it doesn't matter. There are people dying in Ukraine and Russia and Syria. And I mean, we get what we argue about is just ridiculous.
It does become that. Now, Wayne, you by trade are a pilot, and now that you're a captain, now you're in charge, right? Everything that happens on that plane is up to you. How do you handle that? How do you guide your team that way, and how do you handle the passengers that are irate?
Well, it starts with good communication, obviously, right? And at the beginning of our day, we have a crew briefing, and that's my opportunity to introduce myself, say hello to everybody, and then that's my opportunity to set the tone. You know, um, as a captain and a good person, you know, I have going with the right meaningful engagement, and I obviously get everybody's attention, and we cover the specific items that we need to cover. And then, I usually add a little something at the end saying, we just met today, but we're all still part of the same team, right? I always
Did you
mention
guys you guys have a
there
different
one.
crew? Sorry to interrupt you, Wayne, but you guys have a different crew every time? Like, how does that work?
I work with different people almost every time I go to work. Yep. And we've all been taught the same procedures, standard operating procedures. So we all know our jobs, but our individual personalities, people, traits come to work with us individually, right? And sometimes it's a 1 day, sometimes it's a 3 day, a 5 day, sometimes it's one flight, 1 hour flight, and then you're off to a different crew. And then you're, setting the tone again with another crew briefing with a whole new set of people. So it's,
And they've got it. The wonderful thing about that relationship is there's a huge respect for the person who's got the most responsibility, in my opinion. And it's not that,
Most people.
people that are serving people on a flight, it's not that they're doing anything less. It's just that your responsibility is in flying. Uh, I don't know how many thousands of pounds those things are,
Yeah.
but shit can go wrong, and
At
you
the end of
have
the day, there is a, in this profession there is a higher authority, but at the end of the day, people are people, and people will be people, and people with strong personalities will bring that strength to the job. And I think if we're good at reading people, we can quickly recognize who has the strengths and who has the weaknesses, and we could actually delegate things for a stronger team based on that. Because sometimes somebody who appears to be weaker is actually has some much stronger, quieter traits.
people skills. Yeah, 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 yeah. What about, have you ever found your co-pilot? Have you ever had issues with, has there ever been weird power struggles? You know how egos get involved? I don't know if that
Yeah,
Could
works.
no,
be all
it's
captains, right? Wayne, talk about that too first, in
no,
your
it's
airline.
it's in my work environment, it's been pretty good. I got to be honest, it's been
Good.
pretty good. You know, everybody's well studied. They've done the hard work, that dedication that they've had to do to get there, and they respect the process. And the learning process of gaining the experience is a long process. So once the flight deck door closes, I don't have any power struggles, but I get along with everybody, right? And I'm not saying that others haven't had power struggles, right? Because they have, for sure. There's, you get strong personalities, and eventually they're probably going to clash, right? But I mean, from my perspective, we have a job to do, and that's the main focus, and the job is to get from point A to point B safely, right?
Mhm.
And most of the, for me anyway, and I've traveled quite a bit, as did you, obviously, both of you. But it's like generally, I always feel for the pilots when they're late for whatever reasons and you're taxing in and they don't have a bay for you to get, and you're waiting there on the runway and everybody's waiting and it could be hot, you're stuck there going, oh my god, in an hour you've been sitting in the plane and everybody's like, oh my god, this was a 6 hour 7 hour flight, I need to get off this
Yeah,
out of this plane, man, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown.
yeah,
Right, and that is when people get, and during COVID, think people would just get, yeah, like road rage about wearing masks and all of
yeah.
that kind of stuff. So I'm sure you've had to deal
Yep.
with
It was definitely
the
some challenging times, that's for sure.
get
Uh,
off the plane kind of people that lose their crap. Not you. It's not with your team. It's literally with
Well, there's two
road.
different teams he's dealing with, his own team and then the passengers. I know you've had many incidents, but I know you recently talked about one that was really hard to deal with as well, with a passenger that was confrontational with his staff. So he's got a staff.
yeah,
You want to
yeah,
talk about anything? Like, obviously, you don't want to give specific examples, I understand, but
yeah.
how do you deal with that when you've got someone freaking out about a mask, or like, what is the procedures for
Or
you?
drunk, or somebody who's so drunk and badly behaved, or something. You know what I
How do
Well,
you
mean?
stop them from drinking?
generally, hopefully, if somebody's drunk, then they've not gotten as far as through security, so to
Yeah.
speak, right? And
Right.
they certainly wouldn't get on the airplane. But there is the odd time where people do slip through, the cracks, I guess you could say, right?
Actors out there.
Yeah. But generally, if you in my particular case, I've had some flight crew that have had struggles with passengers, and passengers, have exercised their right of entitlement, I guess we would like to say.
Jesus.
Um, but I mean, I've had to actually pull them off the airplane aside, onto the bridge and say, you know, if we're not going to be okay here, then we're going to have to leave you behind. Well, I've had it where the decision's already been made by my lead flight attendant that this passenger can't go because, they're not willing to take him. So, I've had to take this person aside and say,
You got to get off.
regardless of what happened, as much as you want to tell me your side of the story, for the best interest and safety of the rest of the passengers and my crew in this aircraft, I'm have to remove you. You can take the next flight. And it doesn't matter what you tell me at this point. The decision's are already made because safety has to come first, and I can't have any confrontation on board my aircraft.
And I'm
So,
sure you, like many other industries right now, it's almost every industry, you see a big change in how unruly passengers have been, what it was like before compared to what it's like now.
oh my God. Yeah, back in the day, people used to dress up to go flying, right?
Yeah.
Now they show up in their onesies and dragging their blanket, and they build their little nest and demand their caviar, and then complain like they didn't get enough, so they want their money back when they leave, right? That's just sort of the way of the world nowadays. And my favorite is, people. I always say this, and I probably shouldn't, but I swear people go into an airport and they check their brain instead of their luggage.
Right?
you know, because simple little things like I'm going to the top of an escalator, somebody in front of me, only in an airport does this happen. They get to the top of the escalator, they stop, and they look around. Well, there's 1,000 people coming up that escalator, and the escalator's not stopping. It's like, keep moving.
Dominoes.
It's the same thing when you're on the moving sidewalks where you'll have a
Right?
couple that they stand, and you're like,
Yeah.
can you move, go single file here, people? Because there's
But
people behind you, but it's not, they're not conscious of it,
you
right?
see that situation is in their moment, their relationship is with themselves and themselves only. Right?
Okay.
So they're
And that
not
is fine balance. Like we
not
teach
having
young
any
people to,
situational awareness and recognizing what the needs and what other people are doing around them, right?
Okay.
And it should be
so how do you
okay to,
balance that? How do you love oneself, put yourself first, and then we say in the same sentence, okay, but think of everybody else too.
Well, we do that
take a
already.
minute, move over, take a deep breath, you
You
know.
just have to remind people and say, hi, excuse me. And I don't feel weird about saying, would you mind
Me
being
too.
single file
Excuse
just because
me.
I got to get by? I'm so sorry. And people and my friends like, why are you sorry? They shouldn't that like, why are you saying sorry? And I said, I'm Canadian, right? So
Uh-huh.
we try to accommodate everybody because I try to, like, I have a Jesus complex. It's like I've done something wrong. I better try harder. I better, and but that's when the road get the why get the I need to be the hi, I'm kissing, yeah, go, hi, I'm wishing you well. But back in the day, I'd be like panicking because I don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers, but I'm then putting myself at risk for not, and Deb knows, and we've known each other long enough that no, you just say how you feel, and people can tell you to screw yourself or go, oh, sorry, I didn't know. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
And that's the
It,
thing, a lot of people don't know. They're not aware. So not everybody lives in over empathy. I think I live in over empathy. So I probably spend time trying to teach people subliminally too by, oh, thank you. I've got that. I've got that door. Don't worry about it. So I work hard not to try to teach the world either, but I wish the world lived selfishly for themselves, yes, but also selflessly for everyone else so that they're being the best human they can be for the team. Because as much as we are one person at a time, we're only responsible for ourselves. I still have to live in the team. I still have to live with every single human being on the planet. And as much as again, I'll go back to our relationship, Wayne. I'm so blessed. For those that don't know, I live in a relationship that we just don't fight. And I know that Wayne has a big contribution to that because he doesn't escalate and I know how to escalate. But I also feel that when you meet someone that you're not always trying to change yourself for, I think that's a big, big part of it, which I go back to where I started with the essay, because I think the essay was a big catalyst for me to get exactly what I was looking for. And before you can write an essay like that, you have to know what you're looking for. And in order for you to know what you're looking for, it sounds like all three of us at our age categories are older and our experience levels. It took a lot of journeys for us to get here to figure that out. I wish we had this magic spell that we could just teach all the youth, here's how you do it earlier. but it feels like we have to go through all these trials and tribulations to know that no, I'm not okay with someone who wants to change me or who's embarrassed of my crazy talking or my insanity or my playfulness. I need someone who accepts me for exactly who I am because I know how to be me. If no one's trying to change me, I can be me. And I think that's a big recipe that the world needs to learn, no matter dating or otherwise.
Ironically, what you're saying there is when I was younger, I had a stepdad who tried to give me some advice, who had already been through everything that I later learned I had to go through. And you just said if we could have just learned or been able to teach that earlier. But the thing is, I was able to, I was given that advice earlier, but the young me was like, whatever, I'll do this my way, screw you, right? And I'll drive this car as fast as I want to and everything else. And it was through that, not listening to good advice and, choosing to be pig-headed and learn things the hard way that I did learn things the hard way. But, I like to think as I've gotten a little older, I've taken my lessons and, applied them to a good positive lifestyle. And again, I say it starts within oneself. And if you got the balance within yourself, every relationship you're in, whether it's your spouse, your coworkers, your bird or your cat, your fish, even, you'll be just fine with.
But do you think did you never love yourself before? Like, how did you go from
Oh yeah, I did. That was half the problem. I had the ego,
the difference again
right?
between ego and especially male ego younger? Because I feel like most men don't grow up till like 30 or 35. I swear to God.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
But I
Wow.
was having fun. No, I was having fun, having a good time. Just wasn't willing to learn yet, right? You
Hmm.
know, but you get yourself through enough pain and torture, and you either learn or you don't.
Well, I think I mean, you can make mistakes all you want and you'll learn no matter what, but if you don't respect yourself at the core, at the base of everything, if you don't think that you're actually like a good person, if you don't celebrate yourself, if you don't think that you're worthy or capable of success, I feel that every relationship with including with yourself gets compromised. And
Sure.
I come back to people will want you to be what they want you to be. I mean, I've had enough relationships from when I was a child. Oh my God, please don't be retarded. Like, what's wrong with you? Take this medicine. It's just
Normal.
not
Yeah.
okay. And, that goes forward into everything. And if you buy into it, and Deb and I have had this conversation before, and I think this goes for everybody, when you can celebrate, even if you make bad choices, you go, what a great lesson I learned there. Don't be doing that shit
Yep.
anymore. Alcoholism, drug use, all of my stuff. Like, you just gotta go, you've got to learn it, but you're still grateful for even the hard lessons because ultimately you're celebrating yourself when you celebrate the hard lessons and you come to your truth at whatever time you come to it and you know who you are and you value yourself and you write an essay about what you want in your life. And in this case, it could be a job, Deb, it could be a partner, it's all the same thing. I can
Manifestation.
do a vision board, I can write bios and do all things about myself. And people are like, oh my God, that's such a great thing. Oh, I love what you wrote there. But I feel, and like you, Wayne, it's like, know your truth through all your lessons, celebrate yourself. Don't let your ego sort of challenge what is or isn't in someone else because you can only deal with yourself. And if you have a great relationship with yourself, you're going to have a great relationship with the partner you choose and your partner will show up. But if you don't, I honestly think as the years I went by with all my other partners, nothing wrong with them. They're great people. I've seen them and, I hug them and kiss them. And like, yeah, I have no animosity towards my exes at all because I kind of have this weird respect for everybody. But what you learn is, did you really, 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 really celebrate yourself? Did
Yeah.
you really? Or did you struggle a lot until you got to a certain point when I'm good?
Yeah.
I'm really good, you know?
And that goes back to a lot of people staying in relationships for the reasons that they think are right, and then not able to recognize, like, I think when I go back to my ex, I knew in the first year it was not a good relationship for us. I knew we weren't compatible, but I got pregnant, and now it's like, oh, okay, well, he's a good man. He was a very good person, but I didn't realize that I was just bad with him. I thought I was just a yeller. I thought that I was just a really bad, I didn't say, "Oh, you're a bad communicator, Debbie," but I was a bad communicator at the time. And I now know that, I've definitely had to learn how to communicate better. I still was a bad communicator. I take my ownership in that, but I also feel that uh, we fed each other so poorly that the communication just went from bad to just gross and unhealthy communication. And we stayed in that because I feel like, so for some people out there, you maybe have old school tendencies. This is the family, you've got to keep that family together, this is what it's supposed to be. I think that's the key word, this is what it's supposed to be. And I feel now that I've had a different gift, now that I've had a different comparison, I've had decent relationships, but they were never heavenly. And I'm in a heavenly relationship. I never feel unhappy ever in one moment of the day in this relationship. And that is just such a gift that we feel extremely blessed. I can speak for myself, obviously, but I know I speak for us when I say this. We feel so blessed to have found that opportunity because we didn't have that with others. And so, again, right timing, right place, or did I really write it out? Did I manifest that for myself? Which is what I like to believe. I believe I manifested it. I believe he was looking for it at the time. Obviously, everything aligned in just the right way. But if it's a lot of work to make it the way it's supposed to be, I think it's a really good sign that this isn't the right one. And it hurts because you don't want to do it alone, financially, independently, emotionally. It's very difficult. But if you're staying for the wrong reasons, no matter what relationship we're talking about, if for anyone, friends, family members, kids, even, like, kids can be bad relationships too. Just because I birthed them doesn't mean it's always been a good relationship, doesn't mean it always will be. And so you have to learn.
Families, right? Your family. I mean, I know you didn't have brothers or sisters, Deb, but you know, you don't get along with everybody all the time. And if you find yourself constantly fighting or having your ego has to get defensive, like you said earlier, Wayne, then there's something you're battling in yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what would you leave for last advice, Wayne, for people who are, so you say that, oh no, before when you were young, it wasn't the same thing. And, obviously you've gone through a lot of lessons we won't get to in 2 seconds flat, but what advice would you give, especially younger guys who are battling that? What would you call it, ego? What would you call it then? I think you did call it ego when you're younger and you don't care and you don't listen to that advice. I know you can't just say, here's the advice, son, and then they're going to do it, just much like what you heard. But what advice can you give people about communication? And other than just loving yourself, how can they start doing that? How can you even begin to do that when you hate the world or you blaming the world for everything that's going on or when it seems so unhappy?
Well, I think if somebody or we as people take the time to get to know ourselves within ourselves, then we could recognize our emotions and our feelings and the shit that we allow to take us out. And we can stay ahead of that and sort of be the boss of that because really most people's negatives are built on reactions, not really thinking it through kind of process. And really, all you have to do today is breathe. It's the only thing you have to do, any one of us. And you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to engage in negative stuff. And you don't have to convince others that you're right. You don't have to convince others that they're wrong. You have to breathe. It's all you have to do today. And sometimes taking a step back and just breathing gets oxygen in your brain, gets your heart filled, gets your emotions in check, and allows you that brief little moment to just rethink before you speak. I call it HALT, right? Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. We've all heard that that, right? You know, if I take a step back, I halt, wait a second, maybe I'm hungry. I need to feed my brain. I need to feed my body, right? You know, so I need to eat. You know, this is maybe not a good time to be engaging in this relationship, right? In this process, because I need to step back and process myself first, right? If I need to take a nap, I need to take a nap. I've been in relationships where I've tried to step back and that person has followed me right into my face, and to the point where I've had no choice but to physically remove myself and leave.
Run.
And that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I mean, we can't control others, but at some point, if somebody's physically in your harm's way, then it's fight or flight, right? And if you can't get out, then anybody you want to talk to anybody that's backed in the corner, they will fight before they, you know, before they allow anybody to kill them, so to speak, right? And relationships are they're detrimental like that, right? But I think if you just breathe and step back and assess your situation and trust your gut, because so many times I never did, right? You know, and when I met Deb this time around, my gut said, this is right. This is something's right about this. And I just knew it. I knew inside my gut and my heart. And I actually took her around and introduced her to my friends and my closest family, my closest friends. And I said to everybody, I says, listen, you know my track record, so just be honest. What do you think? Every single person I introduced her to said, if you let this one go, you're stupid. So
And they didn't say that about
reassured me.
your other ones, right?
No, they didn't. They said run. So,
God.
but I chose not to. But that's okay. You know what? Everything's a lesson, and my previous relationships, I'm not saying that they're bad people either. They just didn't work, right? We
Yeah.
went down the road until there was a fork in the road. I went left, they went right. Same thing, right? People just stop. I'm not in a situation where I'm stopping at a fork in the road because I've got a life partner who seems to be, you know, run the same road trip with me. So it's a great
Sure.
time. So
It's a
you know,
beautiful gift to have been given, and I know you have it as well, Ellie. Someone that you can just, I just can't stress this enough, just be yourself with. That is the true recipe, in my opinion, for the best relationship in the world. But of course, that means you have to find the right be yourself person, because they have to be okay with all your weird, all your
you know
wacky.
what? If you're not being yourself to yourself, then you're only fooling yourself.
Naked
So
you.
And
So,
it's like Pete says, he loves who he is with me. He loves who he
yeah.
is. And, you know, uh, he doesn't, I don't need him to make me a better person or make me more fulfilled or make me, I am fulfilled. It's like we were talking about before. And I always say, you celebrate that you take a breath every morning you wake up. So breathing for me is a big one, Wayne. And when I'm coaching and stuff like that, I go, you're not breathing. Like you're just not breathing. You're angry, you're holding, it's just like laugh your head off and gulp for air and celebrate. And remember, there's no I in team, and we're in part of a team. It's called humanity. Yes, we're in relationships and we have loving partners and family and children and animals and the whole 9 yards, but we're here as part of humanity. And I feel that, the relationship as we're coming full circle here is to love yourself. Love yourself. So if you really, really love yourself, then your relationships should all be loving. I believe that. But if you're, going, oh, that person's such a dick and fuck, all of that stuff, that's because I don't love myself, because I'm taking it as if somehow their behavior has anything to do with me,
yeah.
I'm
right?
always overwhelmed to
Well,
hear, especially
and
battered women say, well, I think I deserve that. I'm like, wow. Like I hear it, but I can't believe people think that. Like it just blows me away. People think they deserve to be treated like crap. What were you gonna say, Wayne?
I was just gonna say, if you have to grow, otherwise you become stagnant as well,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And one relationship, like being in an abusive relationship, and having not, you don't think you can get out because the threats are so, you can't stay in, you can't get out. No matter what you do, you're in trouble. It's a danger zone. It's
Yeah.
all a danger zone. And the threats are such that they're going to kill you, they're going to kill your family, they're going to hunt your friends. They prove it. They go and they sneak around and follow you and think you're doing all kinds of, I mean, it's just a scary, 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 scary thing, and you just literally, we talked about it earlier, have to take control and realize your power comes from you.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to save you but you,
Yeah.
which means walking away.
Yeah.
And no matter what happens, or, calling 911 after, just saying, I need help. Is there drugs? Is there alcohol involved? Yes. Are they there now? Yes. And they're going to rip the phone cord out of the wall. Get here now. And that's
Yeah.
what. And it's like the whole house is smashed and you're dead, and the cops, get to the door, and it's like, that's when you end cycles of, because it's like, oh, nobody's supposed to know, because this is the bully or the abusive individual in a relationship has no power when the light is shined on them by somebody bigger than them.
And I think that they really do choose people that are not in love with themselves. So for anyone that is in a relationship that they feel very controlled, know that there's something that inside your person that is obvious to someone else who looks to manipulate and control that part of you. And so if you're in it and you're questioning it, just the fact that you're questioning it is a 100% guarantee that you don't love yourself enough, because you would probably never, ever punch, verbally abuse yourself. So if you wouldn't do that to yourself, anything you wouldn't do to yourself because you know you would deserve that better, you should never allow someone to do to you. And if you think you deserve that, then maybe it's time to question why you think you deserve that and talk to someone about that. Because I, again, go back to communication is key. Be honest. My mom was battered and never told anybody. I never understood that. I still never will. I'm too verbal to understand that. But you needed to build a support team to create good relationships. And I go back to you, Wayne. I get to be 100% honest with you at all times. We talk about if he sees a good looking girl, if I see a good looking guy, whatever, everything and anything, having that kind of relationship where you get to be 100% you will save your life. It will just save your life. It really will. So you got to figure out who that is so that you can become that.
Love yourself. That's what I'm saying to y'all.
We did that episode.
On that note, I'll leave you with a little piece of wisdom.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got.
You betcha.
Right. There
You
you
do
go.
that one.
Change it up, in other words. Change that chord, right? You rock and rollers.
Yeah,
Change
he
the
wants to go
chord.
play. He's dying to play his guitar. Actually, he's probably dying to get to sleep. I know he's really tired. Thanks so much, honey, for taking some time for us
Love you,
today.
Wayne. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
being
ladies, for
so
inviting me
great.
on your show.
You're right.
You're a wonderful
love you.
communicator, and I love the way you communicate. I just think you have a message to leave the world, and I think you're a great example for a lot of human beings. So thank you for that.
Can't wait till I fly in a plane and you're the pilot.
Yes, the day will happen.
I know. I figure it
Dude.
will too.
Thanks, Allie, for giving up your time today and send your husband
you
our
guys.
love.
Bye,
Everybody love
everybody.
yourself. Till next time, everybody.
Yum, yum.